She went to a gynecologist. She said, take off all your clothes. She said, doctor, people don't want to be around me for some reason. I go to a dance, no one asks me to dance. I go to a nightclub, people move. She said, hey, help me, doctor. Doctor, take off everything, all your clothes, hang them up there, and get up on the table and put your feet in the stirrups. He said, first, blow your breath in my face. She said, he said, uh-huh. He said, now, get off the table, stand here, and bend over where I can examine you. She bent over, and the doctor started examination. Doctor said, you have Zachary. She said, what? He said, you have Zachary. She said, what the hell is Zachary?
Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton at Big C Sports, coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, I want to say the bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond, in London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, we love you in Canada and Africa, the Big C tribe. But there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south. In the land of the free and the home of the brave on a beautiful June the 1st, 2021. Ground of the Portes. Bonjour, Big C. How's it going for you good old boys down south?
Well, Charlton, we're getting close to the summer down here. It's hot as hell all day long, and so we're waiting on it to cool down. I got to find a shade tree to go lay under so my belly will stop getting tan.
Yeah.
Once again, I want to thank our frontline healthcare workers, our nurses, doctors, and first responders. Maybe they can pass me out a little sunscreen. Maybe they can just come rub it all over me.
Yeah, it's all fair and level war. I want to say today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. When you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you, as well as a fleet of Cadillac cars. Also, all around the world, just say Google or Alexa play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic. He'll do his thing from 3,000 miles away, and I really do appreciate the way things are going with Big C Sports. You can follow Big C Sports on Spotify. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Apple TV, Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. But you better have a smart TV, or you'll be sitting there looking at a picture. Man, I love pausing like the great Red Fox used to pause when he said exactly. I want to make sure that nobody has exactly. It's all fair and love and war. Big C, but I'll never pause on our Veterans Crisis Hotline. They really are experienced helping veterans and their loved ones. Can help Big C. Why should everybody care?
Well, Charlton, now that America has passed Memorial Day, they think that thinking about our veterans is over. But it's not, Charlton. Suicide will still persist even after Memorial Day in America. We lose over 2,000 veterans a day because people forget to pay attention, forget to check on them health-wise. Mental health is health. It is a health problem in America, Charlton. And many of our veterans have committed suicide because of mental health problems.
Yeah.
We have to think about that every day. Just about everybody around you, somebody suffers some sort of mental irregularities, Charlton. So we have to pay attention to that. It is a horrific disease that people feel embarrassed about. But don't be embarrassed. Think about helping somebody. Think about the good service that you will do when you address someone's mental issues, Charlton. We give out the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number, but we need all people to be cognizant and aware of everybody's mental health as well as their physical health in America, Charlton. And let's find a way to stop suicide.
Let's find a way. Very well said. 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255. If you're online, simply go to veteranscrisisline.net. That's veteranscrisisline.net. And you can definitely get some help for our veterans and their loved ones. Also very happy to be affiliated with Valley, home with weekly TV on Dish TV, Direct TV, AT&T Uverse, TV 53, home of the San Francisco Giants, and the Say Hey Kid, as well as the home run king, Barry Bonds. When you reach out to him, just tell him Big C sent you. Our goal is simple: recruit 10,000 real estate agents and brokers all over this great country, helping them put people back to work. just like McDonald's does it, car dealerships are doing it, sports teams are doing it, watch TV, and real estate work for you. 800-772-8624. If you're looking for opportunities in real estate, go to bigcsports.pacwm.com. Most of the loans are underwritten by Rocket Mortgage, the #1 lender in the country on the wholesale side. Also, I want to say thank you to Xfinity Comcast TV and Comcast Spotlight for presenting Big C Sports to the universe. Just like God said in Genesis 1:3, let there be light. Open your cell phones and say play Big C Sports Podcast. You will see all of our apps pop up, and I really do appreciate the way things have grown with Big C Sports. My goodness, Big C, did you say that you lay down in the sunshine and you lay on your backside, or do you lay on your stomach? And how do you get your suntan on your stomach if you're laying on your backside? Big C, that makes sense?
Well, Charlton, when I'm face up to the sun, Charlton,
okay.
It's like casting a quarter of a moon on the ground, Charlton, when that sun comes over and stuff. So, one side of my stomach gets a little heat.
It's all fair in Level War. Anyone want to laugh, you got to look up one of the greatest comedians in the history of the universe, the great late Red Fox, and he had a scene called Exactly, where a lady went to the doctor and he said, you have exactly. I'm sure men have exactly too. It's all fair and level where everyone has exactly at every now and then. Big C, man, there's a lot of good things going on in the sports universe. And NBA basketball, we know they're about to tip off. Also, Major League Baseball swinging the bat. And football is always a talk. At the top of anyone's mind is football is there. But I want to open this show just based on what we had talked about yesterday. And I really do appreciate how you could talk about things and they show up. This mental health hotline that I think everybody should use. I know I use it. I've been getting counseling for maybe the last year just to get some emotional things going on and getting a tune-up. You don't have to wait until your check engine light comes on before you go and get your annual maintenance, Big C. So I went to the doctor today, and they did my blood work, and so I'll get out the results probably sometime tomorrow. But I'm glad that I did that. But you know what they also offered, Big C? When I sat down and talked to the clinician that took my blood, she said, do you feel that you need any mental health counseling, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, we all need it every day, whether we want to recognize it or not. By having communications with people on a daily basis, Charlton, that is actually mental health counseling. When you can sit down and talk to someone, it doesn't have to be a psychiatrist, it doesn't have to be a medical person, Charlton. It's just anybody who is willing to listen and interact with you.
Yeah, it's all fair and level war, so I encourage everyone, whether you're a veteran or a civilian, reach out and touch somebody's hand and make this world a better place if you can. And I will also want to say, for the people in the tennis world that are trying to chastise Naomi Osaka, I think she's the #2 ranked tennis player in the world right now, Big C. But for all of the people trying to shame her and take away her chance to play in other tournaments, I hope that we can name those people and put a microphone in front of their face and then ask them to explain why they're so insensitive when a person goes through mental health crisis. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, this is what is, society and everybody else has accepted about black athletes is that they're invincible. And all they're supposed to do is play sports.
Yeah.
Nothing else is supposed to bother them. They're not normal people. They are machines. This is how black athletes have been designed to be looked at through the media lens, Charlton. And when you buy into that, and when you only want to talk about how great somebody is and how well they perform in a competition, then you fall into that same game. You have to recognize these are people first. These are family members, Charlton. They have the issues as well as their family members have issues like everybody else.
Right.
It's not the $1 million paychecks that they get, Charlton. They have feelings and sensitivity like anybody else. And if then you don't recognize that within these black athletes, you're a damn fool.
Yeah, and a lot of people are fools. And so I really hope that the whole sports media, instead of just saying that the tennis community should have some compassion, name each one of those individuals that's saying they want to strip her of being able to make a living. Name them, and let's put them on TV and let them explain themselves and see if they can deal with their mental health issues for being as egregious and painful as they're being. I think that's very true. Everyone needs to be called to the table sometimes. Big C, I want to touch on some things that are happening in the world of the NBA universe. Everybody thinks that life is easy when you have several $1 million, when you're famous, and everybody thinks, well, if I could just be like that person, if I could just be like that person that's living the life, Big C, it's all fair and love and war. But NBA basketball, there's an NBA agent by the name of Rich Paul, Big C. He says that white American athletes, they don't want a black agent. I know several agents, sports agents, some of them black, some of them Caucasian, Big C. But I heard the same things that Chris Paul has been lamenting, Big C. Oftentimes, they can only sign or athletes that look just like them. And some of our white counterparts, they may stand hand in hand and be teammates, but oftentimes they kind of meander around that agent, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I mean, what black agent in the NBA wants a white athlete? What white athletes are out there that are just predominant superstars in the NBA and have their way around the league? There's a couple of them that people know, Charlton.
Yeah.
But when you turn on the television dial to watch an NBA game, tell me 5 white players that you gravitas to when you turn on the television that they're must-see TV.
Yeah, I mean, not that many, Big C. And even if there are, then at the same time, and I know I interviewed a couple of sports agents and a couple of NFL football players from the 49ers and the Cincinnati Bengals, and they were telling me about the agent industry and how difficult it is. Sometimes they get blackballed from it, the same way black head coaches get blackballed from coaching. So Rich Paul has become very powerful, Big C, one of the most powerful agents in the NBA universe, because he's earned it based on his own abilities, his own maneuvering, Big C, and of course, his close friendship with LeBron James. We all saw the movie Jerry Maguire back in the day with Lee Steinberg and Tom Cruise and Cuba Gooding Jr., Big C. But that's a real story. But getting on the side of that story, oftentimes it is laced with issues of color, and he believes that there's a significant group of athletes that will not work with him or through him at all, Big C. That's a shame, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, white athletes are very particular in that way, Charlton. They think about image more than anything else. You know, if I got a black guy controlling my interests, what does that say about me and society?
Yeah.
That I'm lesser than this black man. Society hasn't changed as much as you want to believe that it has, Charlton. Yes, they whitewash a lot of things. They make it look good on the fringes, Charlton, the perimeters. But when you look at the whole totality of everything, why do you think there's no black people in power in the NBA as far as ownership? You know, because it is a white league, Charlton. And white players don't want to walk in there thinking that the black man is in control of their destiny.
You know, it's something that is well researched and well thought about. If you got a uniform on, people love you. They say they treat you like a son, and they welcome you into their home. But when it comes to maybe representation, oftentimes those men have found the same type of challenges that other people have had in mainstream society, Big C. So in a wide-ranging interview, you know, he discussed the intricacies of being an African-American man in the field of sports agents that's overwhelmingly Caucasian. And after saying that many black athletes are reluctant to sign with black agents, Big C, oftentimes they think they can't get the same kind of money or they can't get the same kind of contract, which is not true. But after he's saying that black agents and athletes have been reluctant to work together, mostly from the athlete's point of view, Big C, to sign with a black agent, Paul said it was much more the case with the white counterparts as well, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, a lot of that with the black athletes come from lack of intelligence, and I'm going to be blunt about that. When you haven't been in college for 3 and 4 years and you walk out and all you've been is a freshman, you know, in college, Charlton, and with the 6 months of classes, you're looking for names more than anything. The people who have been publicized over the years that you grew up with, and you saw them representing the guys that you reveled over when you were a kid, Charlton. Yeah. And that's what has happened with so many of these athletes. Not understanding that in professional leagues is that every agent has access to every player's contract.
Yeah.
Actually, every player has access to every player's contract. That's why you have a union, because they have to disclose what is paid at each tier of a professional level. So there's no, thinking around who's making what, Charlton. That's what your union is all about.
Yeah.
But these players, because they haven't gotten an education and understand that, Charlton, are not really understand the full negotiating ability of any agent.
Yeah, and oftentimes they'll run and think that somebody with a different skin complexion can help them do the contract better. It doesn't make any sense. But Paul said it's very difficult for him to represent a white player, and he expressed the surprise that was the case, Big C. It looks, when you look around, and there's very few, he said, and some of the sports agents that I know that are black said the same thing, that represent NFL and NBA players. He said they represent a player from Bosnia, but again, he's international, and he looks different at African-American agents, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, he looks different at African-American people, Charlton. He was not raised in a nation of separation and racism. When he came to America and them learning the game, Charlton, is because they mostly revered the black players while they were kids. And so they wanted to be like them. For any opportunity that they had to have the same similarities as a black man once they came to America, they gravitated to that.
Yeah, they can gravitate to that too, Big C. And just like some of the guys that I know, he said, Paul is saying that a lot of Caucasian players who are American, they don't want a black agent. And he asked them, and they'll never say that. And Paul answered, cracking a rare smile. But that's a real deal, and people don't talk about it. But at the same time, the black representation is growing, but it's growing among black athletes. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, it's growing, Charlton. It's been a slow-moving caravan over the decades because blacks, it was a hard hurdle to get over, just getting into the league to be accepted. And then you have to start with small pieces, Charlton. The white agents had grabbed up all the high-priced and big-name black athletes, Charlton, and it was very difficult to get them to move away from them. I mean, the first black super agent was Eugene Parker, Charlton, but back in the 80s when he was representing high-profile black football players. And Deion Sanders was one of his athletes, Charlton, but this is what happened to a lot of black agents. They've had a hurdle to get over, Charlton, that they needed a ladder to climb.
Yeah, they needed a ladder to climb, and some of my, I'm not going to say their names, but some of my some of my agents that I know that are African-American, they told me about sometime that paperback that does pass along to that college player that comes from an agent that maybe they have the system where they can go out and grab more money and wave it in front of their face, and that also grabs people's attention, Big C. But he's at the same time.
That's called the Reggie Bush syndrome, Charlton. Buy the family house and I'll represent.
And there's a lot of other guys who are smart enough to take that money from the paperback, Big C, but they don't think it's going to go away anytime soon. There's always a cloud hanging over America when it comes to that. That Bosnian player, Big C, by the way, is Yusuf Nurkic, and he's a Portland Trailblazer who signed with Paul. He did that back in 2019 that he signed with Paul, Big C. Your thoughts?
And he's been an all-star player in the NBA, Charlton. When he's not injured, he's one of the best big men in the paint.
Yeah, one of the best big men in the paint. But I want to also expound on that, Big C, because as the agents come around, and it's a who you know business. There's even some talk about boxers that will sign with certain people. Some boxers are getting pretty smart, and they started their own promotions, Big C. There's a handful of guys that have done that. But at the same time, if you recall back to your days, what was it? I know it was less black representation when you were playing ball in college. But did you have those conversations with your black American teammates about how they're going to get into the business and what agent is calling them up and how they kind of manipulate somebody to sign with them? Big C, your thoughts?
You have to understand, Charlton, when I came out of college back in the 70s, it was a naivete thing going on. I mean, agents weren't big time back in those days. They were not regulated by the leagues like they are now. It was basically a temp service. They would tell you what you could do, but we didn't have the internet to know what an agent's history was, the background. The league really did not run background checks. I mean, it's just you came in representing players. And they gouged players back in those days, Charlton. They took an exorbitant amount of money when we first came out of college in those days. And, but agents, they were pimps and hustlers. Big-time athletes got money. All of them got paid for agents to represent them. Look, and you see a guy, his senior year in college back then, we didn't have guys coming out early, driving around in a brand-new car. As soon as their season was over, they had a brand-new car. Jewelry and things of that nature, and all of a sudden they had moved off campus. They had a house or a nice apartment. So it was a hustle game that was going on back in the early 70s.
I hear you were doing the Reggie Bush thing before Reggie Bush was doing his thing, but it's all fair in Love and War. I want to make sure we pump the microphone. It's all fair in Love and War. So every kid that's looking for an opportunity, get a second opinion, whether you're getting a mortgage loan or getting a quote from an insurance agent, get a second opinion from your sports agent. When the banks compete, you win, and when the agents compete, you also win. But it's hard to overcome the size of the paperback. It's all fair in Love and War. Big C, I want to talk about the next level of athletes that will also have to deal with what Rich Paul was talking about, Big C, when it comes to who do you have as representation that's going to help you get to that next level. In college football, in fact, the college football universe, the Senior Bowl, Big C, the NFL is going to hold a pre-draft combine for top prospects from historically black colleges and universities. It's going to be next January, Big C. We were just talking about that because not too many times will they get the same consideration. The inaugural HBCU Combine is scheduled, Big C, January 28th through 29th in 2022. It's going to be similar to the NFL Combine with interviews on, I guess they can have on-field and medical evaluations as well, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charleston, black athletes from the historical black colleges has been as good as any athlete on any Power 5 league around the country, Charleston, but they have not been invited to the Combine. So they haven't had an opportunity to showcase, alongside these big college, major college players.
Yeah.
And so these NFL teams have always known that they can get them as free agents and get them cheap.
Yeah.
But now that they're going to have the exposure, Charleston, you can't hide these guys behind the bushes and stuff and sneak them in.
Yeah.
You're going to have to pay them. You're going to have to draft them because they're not going to be sneaking into free agency any longer.
Yes, all fair and love and war, Big C. We're going to pump up that microphone. It will be held at the University of South Alabama, and it's going to feature select players from 4 HBCU conferences: the Southwestern Athletic Conference, Big C, the Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference, the Southern Intercollegiate Athletic Conference, and the Central Intercollegiate Athletic Conference, and other HBCU institutions. It is amazing how oftentimes we'll have that one day or maybe 2 or 3 days of talking about HBCUs, but now I'm really happy for the HBCU athletes, Big C, student athletes, that are going to have the same opportunity to compete as the Power 5 schools, Big C. Your thoughts?
Charleston, all black people ever ask is the equal opportunity to compete. And now that the HBCU players will get an equal opportunity to compete at a combine and an all-star game, Charleston, they'll be getting the same type of recognition as everybody you see every Saturday on television.
Yeah, we've just seen some big names. Eddie George played at Tennessee, for the Tennessee Titans. Big C played at the Super Bowl with the great Steve Air McNair, and we'll have Deion Sanders at Jackson State. A lot of other players that are getting coaching opportunities. And so now we're seeing more African-American coaches getting those opportunities. And along with media, I believe we're part of that media also, Big C, that has been calling for the attention, just shine the spotlight and give people a chance. And do you happen to think that that's maybe a direct correlation to getting more men hired that have a name in mainstream, Big C? Your thoughts?
No, Charleston, I think it's just a reckoning. I mean, the NFL has known that they've been wrong for a long time.
Yeah.
And this comes from the Players Association also, Charleston. There's a lot of HBCU alumni in the NFL that's been a part of the NFL. And they've been calling for this for a long time.
Yeah, it's about time, and I'm glad that we can be a part of that too, as opposed to saying, how come they don't talk about it? They should talk about it. Well, we are the they, and that's all fair and love and war. No HBCU players were drafted in 2021, Big C. And the only one picked in 2020 went in the 7th round out of Alabama State. An offensive lineman by the name of Titus Howard, Big C, was a first-round pick by the Houston Texans in 2019 after participating in the Senior Bowl, Big C. Throughout the NFL history, HBCU athletes have exemplified a standard of both excellence on and off the field. And it's about time that teams wake up! If they wake up, Big C, and start looking around and finding there's more opportunity when you expand your employee pool, Big C. Your thoughts?
All blacks ever want, Charleston, is a seat at the table.
Yeah, I want more than a seat at the table. I want to at least eat. Somebody can let you sit at the table so you can watch them eat, Big C. And we've seen that a lot. But I like to have a seat at the table and also be able to eat the Big C burger. It's a tasty burger, and it comes with exotic meats. It's all fair and love and war. So congratulations, Rich Paul. Just speaking out. And there's something else I want to touch on too, because with Naomi Osaka, there's oftentimes where I've heard some of the older African-American athletes say, well, you don't want to cause a problem. You don't want to make any ruckus. You just want to go do your job. And so they were reticent to speak out, Big C, because if they did, oftentimes they were shouted down. That's one of the reasons that I have so much respect for the late Muhammad Ali, Big C, because he was a person who was a maven. He was a person who believed in himself, in a higher self, Big C, and he wasn't afraid to say, I'm the greatest. And he was not one of those guys that walked around with his head between his tails. And I really admired that about him, because he could have chosen not to, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charleston, there were many black athletes of that era who spoke out in all sports, Charleston, in baseball, basketball, and football. Ali just happened to be most noted because he was heavyweight champion of the world.
Yeah.
But when you look at the elite black athletes of that era when Ali was speaking out, they all spoke out, Charlton. They were not silent. It's
Yeah.
just they didn't have the media access that athletes have today.
Yeah, maybe not having that microphone. If a tree falls in the forest and no one sees it, does it make a sound? Yes, it does make a sound. It's all fair and level war. I'm glad that more people are making sounds of all colors, standing up for advocacy, especially when it comes to Naomi Osaka, a young woman to have these oligarchies of power behind closed doors, being quiet, clandestine, and saying what they're going to do to punish this woman, and they're afraid to put their name on the chastisement. Put your name on the chastisement so people can really hear how you feel, and then we'll see if you still have the same thought. It's all fair and level war, Big C. I want to touch on what's going on before we get up on the Big C pause. The great NBA basketball universe, Big C. We're seeing it right now being played out in front of our own two eyes. And so now's not the time to start saying who's great and who's not great. Sometimes you just watch with your own two eyes and we'll see who lands on the winning side of that game. The great Donovan Mitchell scored 30 points, and the top-seeded Utah Jazz, they grabbed a 3-1 lead on Monday night by holding off the talented Memphis Grizzlies. It was 120-113, and that's a team in Memphis that had their chances, Big C, but you could just see the experience when it came down to the small plays, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charles, the size that you have in Utah. You look at Quinn Snyder. I mean, this guy's been a winner ever since he was a player at Duke under Mike Krzyzewski, Charlton. And then he took over the University of Missouri's program, and then he elevated himself to the NBA, to Utah Jazz, and made them the best team during the regular season in the NBA this year.
Yeah.
And this team has elevated itself. Donovan Mitchell missed that first game, Charlton, with that leg injury, but he's back. And when he's in the lineup, how many players in the West right now are better than him at the guard position? That's what you really have to look at. And he can take it to you. And then you got this stopper in the middle in Rudy Gobert who can stop anybody's shot, Charlton, and he's going to defend around the rim and grab the rebounds. You got Ingles who can knock it down from outside. This team is talented, Charlton, and they're not going away anytime soon.
Not anytime soon. I'm sure Conley was saying, how you like me now? It's all fair and level war. The all-star guard, the great Rudy Gobert, scored 13 of his 17 points. In the third quarter, Jordan Clarkson, the NBA Sixth Man of the Year winner, Big C's dropped 24. Bogdanovich added 13, and Conley also added 11. And they're making timely shots, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, they're doing that, Charlton. This is a team that's done this all year long. I mean, yes, they had that one game where Jay Morant and Booker went off against them, Charlton, but they settled down. And once they got Mitchell back, they became a complete team again.
Yeah, they became a complete team. Basically, the great Ja Morant averaged 33.7 points through his first three playoffs games, dropping 23 and 12 assists for Memphis. The great Dylan Brooks, who looks like he's ready for anybody's football team, Big C, and Jaren Jackson Jr. each dropped 21 points. DeAnthony Melton had all of his 15 of his points in the fourth quarter. And the great Jonas Valanciunas, Big C, finished with 14 points and 12 rebounds. And I'm telling you, this team, that Memphis is a good team, but you can just tell they're playing a team that's been battle-tested, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, they don't have that playoff experience, and that's what hurts a lot of teams this time. You're aggressive, but you don't know how to score all situations that are presented to you.
Yeah.
Utah has been there before, Charlton. They didn't get a chance to play in the playoffs last year because of the COVID-19. Well, they played in the bubble.
Yeah.
But now they're at home, and you get people up there in Salt Lake City, Charlton, and you're hell on your opponent.
Yeah, you're pretty tough on their opponent. And word has it, they went down south and they brought their own Gatorade, Big C. They didn't fall for that Southern hospitality that oftentimes the Southerners like to give to the people coming out from the Midwest. It's all fair and level war. We're going to work on your microphone. We're going to take what's called the Big C pause. And when we come back, we're going to do some more talk about what's going on in the sports universe. And in the words of the great Arnold Schwarzenegger, we'll be back. All right, we are back from the Big C pause, also known as the Big C timeout. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. There's so many apps that you can follow, and I really do appreciate the way things have grown with Big C Sports. I also want to say thank you to Xfinity Comcast TV and Comcast Spotlight for presenting Big C Sports to the universe. Just like God said, Genesis 1:3, let there be light. Open your cell phones and say play Big C Sports Podcast. You will see all of our apps pop up from all over the world. And I really do appreciate the way things are growing with Big C Sports. Big C, I want to take you back to another game on the East Coast. I thought we would have had a better series, but it may just end up being 4-1. But right now it's 3-1 after the Philadelphia 76ers. They lost the NBA MVP finalist Joel Embiid, Big C, to what the team called a sore right knee late in the first quarter on Monday night, Big C. They lost their lead and their chance at their franchise's first playoff sweep in 36 years, Big C. Your thoughts? All right, Big C, we've been having a little bit of technical difficulty. I think Anthony Davis fell over one of our microphone wires. It's all fair and level word, Big C, or maybe it was the great Joel Embiid. But as I was saying, the 76ers lost the chance at their first playoff sweep in 36 years, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I mean, this is a team that had a challenge. Embiid went down with a sprung knee, Charlton, and Washington took advantage of it. They went inside with their big men led by Lopez and just beat up on the Philadelphia 76ers. Bradley Beal controlled the tempo of the game. Russell Westbrook had his triple-double, Charlton. But this was a very aggressive Washington team last night that wasn't going to just lay down for Philadelphia.
Yeah, now everybody's loving the great Russell Westbrook, even though he didn't have the greatest shooting game, Big C. But with Embiid gone for most of Game 4, Bradley Beal dropping 27 points. The great Russell Westbrook, his 12th career playoff triple-double, Big C. Washington stingy. I mean, telling you about they fouled the great Ben Simmons, who had a hard time deciding which hoop he was going to shoot it through when it came to free throws, Big C. So they grabbed him whenever possible down the stretch. It all helped the Wizards beat the 76ers 122-114 to cut Philadelphia's series edge to 3-1. Tobias Harris, who led the Sixers with 21 points and 13 rebounds. But if their strategy is to just grab Ben Simmons when you need him to go to the free throw line, maybe Doc Rivers could reverse that trend and maybe have him shoot more free throws in practice, or maybe pull him to the bench if you know that's the opponent's strategy, Big C. Your thoughts?
Charlton, if you're 5 years in the NBA and you can't shoot free throws, that's your problem. It's not the coach's problem. That means that you have a problem looking at that 10 rim up there, Charlton, and he has that problem ever since he's been in the NBA. He has never been known as a shooter. This is what's occurred all year long. Teams have filed Ben Simmons when Joel Embiid has not been in the lineup.
Yeah.
And so they take advantage of that weakness. This has been done throughout the NBA's history, Charlton. This used to happen to Shaq years ago.
Yeah.
Because he could not shoot free throws.
Yeah.
Teams understand if you only knock down one and they make a 2 or a 3, then it's to their advantage.
Yeah.
And that's what they did. Russell Westbrook last night took some untimely shots where he should have been launching it from 3. He should have penetrated with it, and yes, he did get a triple-double, but he also cost the team in some critical situations, Charlton. But this team had balanced scoring, and they took advantage of his weakness in the game.
Yeah, they took advantage of the weakness, and they got to work on that, shoot some extra free throws, whatever it takes to get Ben Simmons. It's all fair and level war. I do want to touch on some games that are going on tonight, Big C. You know, some are already underway, but the Boston Celtics, they're in Brooklyn tonight, Big C. And I don't know if they let the leprechauns in the arena, Big C, over in Brooklyn. They may have scanned to keep all the leprechauns out. But now the Brooklyn Nets, they have everything lined up that they've been looking for. They made a big trade throughout the season, and we got at least they got everything that they wanted, supposedly Durant and Harden. And then, you know, it's just Irving doing this thing also. This is a team in Boston. They have nothing to lose. And when people thought they were going to lay down and just get swept, Tatum dropped 50 points. The problem with Tatum dropping 50 is he shot a lot of energy out of his body, Big C, so he didn't have the greatest game last time. And tonight he's probably not going to get 50, but is there any chance that Boston can do what Washington did with Philadelphia and extend this series even more, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, Boston played their hearts out. I mean, it's an undermanned team with a lot of injuries. Brooklyn is healthy, and they play excellent basketball. I mean, all NBA teams from time to time is going to let one slip away, but Boston just doesn't have enough manpower to have a 3-game sweep against the Brooklyn Nets.
Yeah, and I just wonder if the great Kevin Durant will drop another 30 points, probably get to 40. It's all fair and level war. I want to take you to the great Pacific Northwest. And when you think about it, Big C, we have NBA teams in Canada with the Toronto Raptors. Used to have the Vancouver Grizzlies in Canada on the West Coast, Big C. The furthest team to the north in the western part of the United States, the Portland Trail Blazers. Used to be Seattle, used to be Vancouver, but they went down to Memphis. And, you know, Seattle, they ended up going down to OKC, Big C, Oklahoma City. So now you have Portland Trail Blazers, They're in a dogfight tonight. Maybe I don't want to say dogfight for a better word. They're in a big game tonight against the Denver Nuggets, the team that wins this game tonight. And it's going to be, they're playing the game in Denver, so you know the altitude might be a factor. They should get some home cooking, but Portland went into Denver, and they got to win before, and they came back home, and they also got to win. So both teams have shown that they can win on the other person's floor, Big C. Who are you looking forward to having a big game tonight between maybe the Joker or Dollar Dame, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Jokic is going to get his points. He's gotten his points in every game. He's going to get the MVP trophy also, Charlton, at some point here in the playoffs. But this is a team, when you look at the Denver Nuggets, that has outmanned the Portland Trailblazers. What the Portland Trailblazers did in that first win in Denver, Charlton, is that they took away the outside shooting of the Nuggets.
Yeah.
And they allowed Joker to get his points, but the opponent, his teammates, just would not deliver. They did not play well off of the ball, Charlton. So as long as they can get open, he's going to get them the basketball. Dame Lillard will shoot Portland out of the game because he has this, propensity to come across and want to fire it in excess of 30 feet away from the basket, which takes his teammates out of the game, Charlton, does not get them in position for rebounds. So unless he's willing a hot hand, shooting over 50% from three, Portland will lose tonight.
It's all fair and love and war, Big C. We will see what happens if they can shoot the lights out in Denver tonight. NBA playoffs down in the desert. I know you said it's hot. It reminded me of the great Nelly. You said you were out sun tanning your belly. The great Nelly said, it's getting hot in here, so take off all your clothes. And Big C went out and started sun tanning his belly. But some people are sun tanning down in Phoenix, Arizona, Big C. The NBA playoffs, what happens next in these Western Conference finals, and we don't know yet. But it's all going to depend on what happens in the first round of the Western Conference. If Anthony Davis isn't healthy and LeBron James and the Lakers are going to have a tough time climbing that mountain, but they say when it's really hot, go jump on the lake. There's not a lot of lakes in Arizona, but I heard that the Lakers are piping in water from California to cool off the sun. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, you don't want to get the 10-man jumping in any water. He may rust up to go along with his injuries and stuff. But the Lakers are in trouble, Charlton, down in Phoenix. This is a team in Phoenix that's healthy, and they're playing exciting basketball. And they have no answer for Ayton right now. You got to remember, this big man is shooting 82% from the floor. So Phoenix, it's imperative that they put the ball in his hands tonight and create that mismatch. The only way that the Lakers are going to win, Charlton, is that LeBron can score over 38 points and dominate the game in the paint. Without that, Charlton, the Lakers are going to lose again in Phoenix.
I think the way that the Lakers win is to get some foul calls by going to the basket. It might be a silly thing to say, but without having Anthony Davis in the game tonight, maybe they'll be forced to drive the paint and get Phoenix in foul trouble. And LeBron's going to get the calls because all the stars always get the calls. It's great to see Chris Paul and LeBron James going up against each other. It's all fair in love and war. And yes, there's another lack of decorum in the NBA. A white fan ran into the court and jumped up and touched the backboard, Big C, during a game at the Capital One Arena in the Philadelphia 76ers and Washington Wizards playoff game on Monday night. The fan was quickly tackled by security. Thank God for security paying attention, and pulled off the floor before being handcuffed by police. I think I even saw in Super Bowl 55, even though they didn't show it on TV, there was a fan that ran onto the football field at the Super Bowl, which might be the most secure place of any sports endeavor, Big C, but it's good that the security reacted very fast, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, like I said last night, Charlton, and I was so adamant about it, when will these white guys stop doing these heinous acts against these black athletes? You go out there, yes, you got to the backboard, you were tackled by security, but what if he had a weapon in his hand, Charlton, and got close to a player or went after a player? What are you going to do at that point? Yes, he got arrested, but you got to start putting people in jail, Charlton.
Yeah, it's all fair and level war.
Black players on the court.
Yeah.
And this is not any other league. This is not NFL. This is not baseball. This is not AAU. This is the NBA, where these players are not protected. There is no shield up. Are you going to have to turn the NBA into the NHL and put plexiglass all the way around the court?
Well, maybe just more security will solve that problem. It's all fair and level war. I'm sure the owners will definitely look at. They're talking about putting netting around every baseball stadium from foul post to foul post, and that's...
But see, that's protecting from a baseball, Charlton.
Yeah.
We're talking about protecting from these damn fools who want to attack players and invade their space. That netting is for the safety of the fans. What are you going to do for the safety of the player? How many security people do you have to be able to put around the court to keep an eye on every fan.
What would be your solution if you were to talk to the NBA and give them your thoughts? If you think it's that big of a problem, what would be your solution?
Well, my solution is, Charlton, when you prosecute these people and on the back of the ticket, it states that you do anything to interfere with the action of the game, is that you're not going to be fined, you're not going to be done any of that, you're going to get jail time. And this agreement needs to be made with the district attorney in every city where there's an NBA team, is that when you want to bring your butt out on the field or on the court, is that you're going to get a minimum amount of years in jail time. No ifs, ands, and buts. You got the camera there, and you broke the rules.
Yeah, it's all fair and love and war, Big C, and maybe that's something that our leagues and the district attorneys will look into. The pitch, hit deep, right field, back to the wall, out of here, the great Cooper Kite, Big C. That's the announcement when the San Francisco Giants go yard in the world of Major League Baseball, Big C. Major League Baseball, the great Jacob deGrom, I love that name, Jacob deGrom, continues to make history with his otherworldly start in the 2021 season. In his second start since returning from the injured list, the great Jacob deGrom, Big C, tossed 6 scoreless innings on Monday, and the Mets won 6-2 at Arizona Diamondbacks, Big C. He lowered his ERA to 0.71, which is only way people have been able to do that is with their laser beam, Big C. So I guess he is throwing with the laser beam 0.71, not 1.71, but 0.71, the lowest for a qualified starter through the end of May since Chris Short had his 0.64 ERA for the Philadelphia Phillies, and that was back in 1964, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, deGrom has been one of the more dominant pitchers in the Major League, Charlton, over the last 5 years. He's been a fireballer for the Mets. It's amazing, as good as he's been,
he's good.
This team can't find hitters to back him up. I know they got Pete Alonso's last year's Rookie of the Year at first base, who also hit 50 home runs. But the Mets, as much money as this new owner has, Charlton, he should be able to find the bats to back him up.
Well, Jacob deGrom is actually doing his part. Someone might want to check him for the Steve Austin. Remember the Bionic Man, the $6 million man, Steve Austin, Lee Majors, the Bionic Man. He had a bionic arm. Maybe the great Jacob deGrom is throwing with a bionic arm. They should call him Jacob deArm, not Jacob deGrom, because he's striking everybody out, Big C. The Mets ace improved to 4-2 with just 4 earned runs in 51 innings. 51 innings, Big C, just 4 earned runs. In his 8 starts, he's allowed no runs. He's allowed only 3. Think about this. 3 times. 1 run 4 times. And 3 earned runs in a game at Coors Field in April with 8 strikeouts. In his 6 innings on Monday night, he is now up to 82 with just 7 walks, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, this is one of the reasons why they're talking about moving the mound back, Charlton, another 6 inches in Major League Baseball to give the hitters an opportunity. But deGrom, this guy, he's been a Cy Young winner with the Mets, Charlton, and he's on his way to getting it again.
Yeah, he's the Bionic Man. It's all fair and level war. Before deGrom, the last pitcher to sub 1.0 ERA through May was Ubaldo Jimenez, Big C, of the Colorado Rockies. That was in 2010. He had a 0.78 ERA. I am not in favor of moving the mound back. When you have dominant pitchers that can maybe have Hall of Fame type numbers, we don't want to change that to have games go longer. They're already too long as it is. That's just my opinion, but everybody has their own opinion, Big C. Major League Baseball, 2 months down, 4 months to go. Are Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Fernando Tatis Jr., the early leaders for the American League and National League MVP. When you look at it, the AL MVP, number 1, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., the Blue Jays, Big C, number 2, the great Shohei Ohtani of the Angels. Even though Mike Trout's the most highest paid player in baseball, he's not even the best player on his own team. And you have the great J.D. Martinez from the Boston Red Sox, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, these young bats in Major League Baseball are waking up. We've become so accustomed over the years to recognizable names, but when you look at the young names, Charlton, that are now patrolling the field in the American League, especially Vlad Guerrero Jr.
He's good.
I watched his dad play, All-Star Hall of Fame outfielder, Charlton, with the Montreal Expos and the California Angels, and his son is even better than his dad.
Yeah. Hey, not so fast, my friend. Not so fast, my friend. That's conversation for the dinner tables, all fair and level. Tatis Jr., his daddy also played in the game when you think about it, and he's a star hitter for the San Diego Padres. There's a lot of good players. It's amazing they only have so many players to go around, and there's a lot of good players that are out here on the West Coast when we come to watching players doing their things as well as down south. Big C, the results, Guerrero, he's hitting .323. That's third in the league, 16 home runs, tied for first, Big C, 42 RBIs. That's tied for third, Big C, putting the AL Triple Crown in play, which you believe he's also leading the majors in OPS at 1.065, and also the WAR, Big C, at 3.1, according to Fangraphs. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, he's been a complete player, Charlton. Coming into this season, he lost 40 pounds during the offseason. That made him a more complete player, Charlton. He was laboring last year, even though, we saw him have a fantastic home run derby. But now that he's become more athletic and flexible, he's delivering on the mound, on the diamond.
Yeah, and I hear that loss of 40 pounds coming from eating the Big C burger. It's a tasty burger, and it comes with exotic meats, and I hear it helps people lose weight. Ohtani, Big C, been magnificent. They say magnificent, Big C. The great Red Fox cracks me up when I think about magnificent, Big C. At the same time, think about what is on the mound, 2.72 ERA. Okay, we know Jacob deGrom is doing his thing, but nobody has the bionic arm like deGrom, Big C. At the plate, Big C, 15 home runs and 40 RBIs. The pitch hit deep. Right field, back to the wall. A great home run. And he's doing it. I mean, deGrom's not doing it behind the plate and on the mound. But Ohtani is, Big C. He's doing his thing, especially the 40 RBIs. The uniqueness of one player that can excel at both, Big C, is going to keep him in the MVP race, even if the Los Angeles Angels are not becoming a playoff contender. And something's wrong when you have Trout and Ohtani and you're not even a playoff contender, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, when you look at Ohtani and what he's doing, Charlton, this is a player that can hit 40 home runs this year.
Easily.
And drive in 120 RBIs. Not only that, he can win 20 games on the mound. So when you talk about a complete baseball player, Charlton, we have not seen anybody like him in the modern era. He's a throwback to bygone years.
Yeah, he's a throwback to bygone years, Big C. All fair level war. The Central leading Chicago White Sox, they have reigning MVP, Jose Abreu. But you think about it, Big C, McConnell's been just as much a part of their hot start as anyone. He's second in the AL to Guerrero in on-base percentage, .417, on the team that leads the major leagues in that category. His defense at third base has also been excellent, and they're managed by the great Hall of Famer Tony La Russa. So they don't all get along, Big C, but they get along when it comes to winning, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, that's what it's all about, Charlton. And what's so great about baseball, like I said, you got the young players right now rising to the top in the American and National League. When you get to the All-Star break, Charlton, you're going to see a lot of new faces, patrolling the grounds there at the All-Star game, which is great for baseball, Charlton, to have this great infusion of young talent.
It's all fair and level war, Big C. National League MVP. Number one, the great Fernando Tatis Jr., San Diego Padres. The great Max Muncy, Los Angeles Dodgers. And Nick Castellanos, Big C, Cincinnati Reds. Tatis has been given the first place Padres spark and swagger, hitting .299 and 15 homers and 12 stolen bases. That's despite missing 17 of their 54 games. The great Muncy, Big C, he's been a rock for the injury-plagued Dodgers, Big C, playing in 51 of 53 games, hitting 13 home runs, leading the majors with a .442 on-base percentage. And Castellanos, Big C, is well on his way to his first 30 home run season. He already has 12 and is leading the majors with a .647 slugging percentage, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, see, this is what's great about baseball is that there's so many outstanding players is that they don't get all the media reps of the more named players.
Yeah.
But once you start delivering, Charlton, this is how you make your way in this league, Charlton, where you catapult yourself into superstardom. And we're seeing this happen on a daily basis earlier this season.
Yeah, we're seeing it, and I really love watching what these young people are doing. And they're swinging the bat for yard, Big C. They're also getting on base. But when you go into the ERA and you're under 1, I mean, you got to go under 1. That's like playing how do you get under the bridge when you gotta duck down to get under the bridge, and they get under that bridge when your ERA is under 1. It's all fair and level war. Man, it's been so hot. A lot of people could use some ice, some lightning too, Big C. The Maple Leafs, the superstar, neutralized yet again as the Montreal Canadiens complete an epic comeback despite an apparent gulf of talent, particularly at the top of their respective rosters. While facing a seemingly insurmountable 3-1 deficit, Big C, the Montreal Canadiens, they pulled off the highly improbable stunning their nemesis, the great Toronto Maple Leafs, in Game 7. It's a game for the ages in old Canada. Big C, your thoughts? All right, we were having a little bit more static in our microphone. I guess the people from Canada decided to throw some ice on a microphone, Big C, but all of Canada was partying after the Maple Leafs did their thing in Game 7, Big C. Your thoughts?
This is another devastating exit from NHL playoffs for the Toronto Maple Leafs, who have not won a series since 2003 in the Stanley Cup playoffs, Charlton. And once again, those fans are up north are just less disappointed.
Yep.
You know, the Montreal Canadiens had no chance. People thought being down 3-1 in this series, that
Amazing.
was all over.
Yep.
And so I think that the Maple Leafs got a little complacent, Charlton, with their superstars and just let Montreal walk all over them.
Yeah, they let them walk. Actually, the Big C, they let them skate all over them. We want to make sure we don't accuse the guys of walking around on that thin ice. They were skating all over them, good old boys. It really was the most, I think you would say the devastating, and some people say disgusting loss of the Austin Matthews era. Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner, Big C, have to take the brunt of the blame for the Maple Leafs collapse. It's not really collapse when you get to the playoffs, though, Big C. But for the second consecutive year, Toronto's two named brand superstars, they were rendered dormant after a year of eruption on the ice, Big C, with COVID. Now, the Canadiens did a better job of seizing the moment, and that comes with the territory. But I hate people saying that the Toronto Maple Leafs were a disappointment, because how are you a disappointment when you make the playoffs, Big C? Your thoughts?
There was a 10-game differential between the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Montreal Canadiens in the standings when it came to the playoffs. That's why you're the disappointment. You got Austin Matthews, one of the young budding superstars of the league, and potentially, an MVP candidate, and he doesn't deliver in the playoffs. He is shut down. That's why you're disappointed, because you went out and you beat this team and handled them all during the regular season, and you were up 3-1 in the playoffs.
Yeah.
That's disappointing.
Yeah, it's all fair in love and war, but I'm sure it's less disappointing than some of the teams that did not make the playoffs. It's all fair in love and war. I want to change up the subject a little bit to get off of some of that ice that they're skating on up in Canada, Big C. The weather's cooler and they get to play on ice. Doesn't make any sense. College baseball. In your neck of the woods, Big C, down there in the South, Arkansas Razorbacks, they rewarded for a dormant run. They were dominant, Big C. Some people thought they're going to have a challenging season, but it was a dominant run through the Southeastern Conference, landing the #1 national seed in the NCAA baseball tournament on Monday. The Razorbacks, Big C, they're 46-10. I hear a lot of the baseball players, they eat the Big C burger. They know it's a tasty burger. They know it comes with exotic meats, Big C. The Razorbacks are 46-10, won all 10 of their SEC series, and wrapped up their first conference tournament championship Sunday after losing 3 straight games in March. The Hogs never lost consecutive games, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, this is a team that's got the pig on ice. They've been shutting down their opponents.
Yeah.
You think about going through a regular season, Charlton,
Yeah.
and you get to a point where you never lose back-to-back games. I mean, Major League teams can only pray for that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you got a hot team down in Arkansas, Charlton, that's getting ready to head to Oklahoma City.
Yeah, and they're taking that hog with them. It's all fair and love and war. The top 8 national seeds are assured of hosting super regionals. If they win their regionals and national seeds following Arkansas, you have Texas at 42-15, Tennessee at 45-16, Vanderbilt at 40-15, Arizona is at 40-15, Big C, TCU they're at 40-17, Mississippi State they're 40-15, and Texas Tech is 36-15. And maybe, just maybe, college football is listening. Would you believe we have more than 4 teams competing for a college national championship, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, you have to understand that college baseball and college basketball are quite similar to each other. There are 64 teams in this NCAA tournament, Charlton, hoping to make it to Omaha,
Yeah.
where the national championship
Omaha!
is
Yep.
played.
Yep.
But because you have so many teams and you can play baseball, you can play 2 games in one day in baseball. You can't do that in football.
All fair and love and war, Big C. Vanderbilt will be going for its 3rd national championship since 2014. They're the #1 academic school in the SEC. After winning the title 2 years ago, there was no tournament in 2020 because of COVID-19 pandemic. As you mentioned, the 64-team tournament opens on Friday. In 16 regionals, Big C, the winners will advance to the 8th best of 3 super regionals, and those winners will move on to the College World Series. In the great words of Peyton Manning, Omaha, Omaha, Big C. Your thoughts?
You know, what a great place to have the College World Series, Charlton. One of the best state places in the United States. if you miss the game, it's because you ate too much in the steakhouse.
You ate too much steak. And who needs all that steak when you can have the Big C burger? It is a tasty burger, and it comes with exotic meats. I wish all of the young baseball players the very best when it comes to trying to win a national championship where you actually get the chance to play into the national championship, and you're not necessarily put there as one of 4 seeds. It's all fair and love and war. Big C, I wanna kick off the start of the 2021 NFL season by talking about something just to let people know that, tomorrow's going to be a lot of movement. Maybe Julio Jones will fly out of Atlanta and land someplace in greener pastures. It's all fair and love and war. But when you think about the most losses in a quarterback's first 7 years, number one on that list of losses is Derek Carr with 63. And when you think about it, under the tutelage of John Gruden, that number is probably going to grow, Big C. Second most losses, his brother David Carr has 56 losses, Big C. This has been since the NFL moved to a 16-game season in 1978, Big C. Your thoughts?
Charlton, the Carr family has that dubious distinction of having brothers with the most losses in the first 7 years of their NFL career. So I guess when they sit around the Thanksgiving table or the Christmas tree, Charlton, they can sit there and pull straws for who has the most wins.
The most wins and pull straws for who has the most 7 figures in their bank accounts. Is all fair and love and war. Both of them came out of Bakersfield Christian High School down in Central California and went to Fresno State, played under the great Pat Hill. It's all fair and love and war. Kansas City Chiefs quarterback, the great touchdown Patrick Mahomes, he wants to make history this upcoming season by going 20-0 with the expanded 2021 NFL football season. And 20-0, it seems like it's impossible based on having an extra game, Big C, and so many more talented people on different teams, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, it's not impossible having an extra game. To get to 20-0, you have to play 20 games. That's not a hard thing to figure out. We've seen that before when the Patriots got to 19-0, Charlton, and they lost to the Giants in the Super Bowl. So you have to complete that perfect run to get to that point. And if any quarterback right now in the NFL can do that, I believe that's Patrick Mahomes. We've seen this guy come back from many improbable situations in games in the NFL. And if he stays healthy and that new offensive line that they put together for him, Charlton, stays intact, and if they make that move and bring in Julio Jones, Katie bar the door, cancel Christmas, Kansas City Chiefs wins it all.
It's all fair and love war, Big C. We'll see what the Raiders have to say about Kansas City winning anything playing in the AFC West. Yeah, I did say
all
the
they got to
Raiders.
do is look at Derek Carr's first 7 years in the NFL and say, hey, we're going to add to that.
Hey, don't be counting your fingers too fast, Big C. The Chargers have a good team this year, and the Denver Broncos. John Elway's picked the smoke in Denver. It's all fair and level war. WNBA scheduled tonight, June 1st on a Tuesday, Las Vegas at Connecticut. LA is at Dallas. Phoenix is at Chicago, and Indiana is at Seattle for the women trying to put the ball to the hoop. Big C, your thoughts?
The NBA is fantastic. The WNBA is fantastic. The young ladies are outstanding athletes moving up and down the court. Their games are outstanding to watch fundamentally. I think any young person trying to understand how great they can be as a basketball player needs to really sit down and watch the WNBA and watch these ladies on how fundamentally they sound that they are, and stop watching the NBA players trying to look at a highlight reel.
And trying to dunk tonight's Major League Baseball scheduled to pitch. Hit deep. Left field. Back to the wall. Home run. Tonight's schedule is Tuesday, June 1st. The White Sox are at Cleveland, Big C. Minnesota is at Baltimore Orioles. Tampa Bay is at New York Yankees. Miami Marlins at the Toronto Blue Jays, Big C. Philadelphia, they're at Cincinnati. The Big Red. Washington's at Atlanta. Detroit's at Milwaukee. San Diego's at the Chicago Cubs. Boston is at Houston. And you think about Boston and Houston, these are two teams that are actually swinging the bat a little bit better. Houston's making noise. They're always going to find someone to ridicule them, Big C, but that should be a good tournament. Boston's actually playing pretty good baseball, Big C. Your thoughts?
Boston's having an outstanding year in the American League East, Charlton. They've been at the top of the division for most of the year. The Houston Astros are not going to go away.
No.
One of these days, people will stop talking about what happened in 2017 and realize they're still playing baseball in 2021.
They're a good team. Pittsburgh at Kansas City. Texas at Colorado, Big C. New York Mets at Arizona. The Los Angeles Angels at Anaheim are at the San Francisco Giants that are playing some giants of a base. They're playing like giants, Big C, in the city by the bay. Big C, your thoughts?
Charlton, the Giants are playing much better than everybody has expected them to do this year, Charlton. All the talk has been about the Dodgers and the Padres. The Dodgers are sitting there, picking up all the trash out of the street at the bottom down there, and the Giants are swimming on top of the bay.
It's swimming on top of the bay. That's better than swimming under the bay, Big C, for guys who play around with the mobsters. It's all fair in love and war. The Oakland A's at Seattle, and the St. Louis Cardinals are at the defending world champions, Los Angeles Dodgers. Big C, your thoughts?
In baseball, like I said, we're 1/3 of the way through the season. We got a long ways to go, 55 games up under the belt, Charlton, and we'll see what happens once they get past that century mark.
We'll see what happens once they get past the century mark. I really appreciate everything that's happening in the world of sports. It's President Biden's doing the best he can to at least not put his head under the sand like a lot of turtles do sometimes, Big C. 100 years after the Tulsa race riot, Big C, President Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, Vice President, they plan to address the racial wealth gap in the United States. 50 years after the Kerner Commission, commissioned by the great Lyndon Baines Johnson president, they concluded a system was by design to create systemic inequality in banking, in education, in employment, in policing, in voting, in mass incarceration in the United States. It's been going on for centuries, Big C, since the end of the Civil War between black and white, and it's intentional. I'm glad that President Biden, even with some ridicule, Big C, is putting together a plan to address that and start to solve that, as opposed to saying it's never going to happen, Big C. Your thoughts?
Charlton, why does this system go to keep black people disenfranchised and disadvantaged? And it is today in America. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to look and see and know the disparity in American society between the culture and races, Charlton, that is done intensely. Today, yes, they celebrated the 100 years of Black Wall Street devastation in Tulsa, Oklahoma, Charlton, but also, even before Black Wall Street was destroyed, the same situation happened in Elaine, Arkansas, in 1919, Charlton, where the governor of Arkansas ordered the U.S. military troops to go into a town, Charlton, and murder black people. The U.S. military on American soil, Charlton, was sent to Elaine, Arkansas. They killed over 250 people.
Yeah, we're having a hard time.
Because they were being treated by white people, so the governor ordered them murdered by the U.S. military.
Yeah, that's a shame. People need to Google that, too. Still having a little bit of issue with the microphone. But President Biden will unveil the policies during a visit to Tulsa, Oklahoma, where a white mob destroyed America's wealthiest black neighborhood in 1921, and what is considered to be the single worst episode of racial violence in the United States history. Oftentimes you hear, I can't believe they're burning down the buildings. I can't believe that someone, set fire to a building, to a warehouse, Big C. Well, a whole mob of people burned down a city where blacks were doing very well, and they were people who were deputized by law enforcement to do it. It wasn't just some mob. These are people who were deputized by law enforcement to go on and become that vigilante justice that they sought out, and they did it. The president will tour the Greenwood Cultural Center with Housing and Urban Development Secretary Maria Fudge and White House Domestic Policy Czar Suzanne Rice and the Public Engagement Director Cedric Richmond. It's all fair in love and war. President Biden delivered commemorating Mark's 100-year anniversary of the massacre, announcing the new policies. I know that everybody has a thought on how we can make this country better. You make things better by acknowledging it. We talked about Naomi Osaka. Anyone that wants to punish her from having mental health issues, please speak now, reveal your name, or forever hold your criticism. You should not be able to criticize if you're afraid to put your name out there and let people know who you are. It's all fair in love and war. NBA basketball is trying to get some slam dunks and some three-point baskets tonight. I think the teams that are driving to the basket will have more success. WNBA trying to put the ball through the net, and Major League Baseball is still hitting the deep right field home run. It's all fair in love and war. Big C, all we got to do is rise and shine. I hope your suntan is working out on your belly down south. Big C, back in the day, there's a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man, and he would always tell Ali, float like a butterfly and sting like a bee. Rumble, young man, rumble. With all you've got to use, how can you lose, Big C? What are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, Charlton, as the University of Arkansas Razorback became the #1 seed in the college baseball tournament, Charlton, to get to the World Series. I want everybody to Google Elaine, Arkansas. Elaine, Arkansas. Yes, Tulsa was celebrated today, but back in 1919, the governor of Arkansas ordered in the U.S. military to assassinate black American citizens. On that day, Charlton, they killed over 250 black men, women, and children. At that time, the worst mass murder in American history, Charlton, was perpetrated by the American military against black American citizens. Once again, I want to thank our frontline healthcare workers, our nurses, doctors, first responders. They're always around to help. Unfortunately, they weren't there in 1919. But Google Elaine, Arkansas.
It's all fair in Leavenworth. Google it. Don't put your head in the sand. We can only rise and shine when we pay attention to what really happened. You can rise and shine every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide. Will you follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America? And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, as my mom always says, there's never ever an excuse for racism or domestic violence. If you know any man, woman, or child going through that garbage, please pick up the phone and ask for help, because no man, woman, or child should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.